Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Simply Spooky on a Wednesday evening here. And we are actually on the Simply Spooky channel at the moment. And I just want to say hi to a few people. Hello, William. Hello, Lo. Hello, Nettie. And well, thanks a lot very much, Lo, for sharing out for us. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Simply Spooky. This evening, we've got a real special guest for you. We've got the wonderful, lovely Karin Bessant. And she's agreed to come on and have a chat with us this evening. And hello, Karin. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. Now, there's a picture behind us you can see on the screen, and Karin knows this place very well because, well, Karin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your relationship to that building behind us?
Well, I am so honoured to be part of the Jamaica Inn Paranormal team that was set up over 8.5 years ago, and slightly weird and slightly nerdy, obsessing and researching the history and the paranormal. There, it's a it's a busman's dream.
Excellent, wonderful. So you've got a lot of connection to that building itself, and you've investigated it on, well, countless occasions, I guess. What's your favourite part about it?
My favorite part is you can never say what is the most haunted part, most haunted bedroom area, because we've noticed it sort of like goes round. So January, suddenly room 6 had lots of reports. I've stayed there over 20 times. I've never had nothing. I think they run away when they see me get undressed, get into bed.
Sounds like me.
Yeah.
About me.
Room 5, room 4, and room 3, I've had experiences. But I was chatting with someone today and I said, what I like about this place is, and it's the same with Woodchester, which I do a lot privately, if they like you, and it's really weird, but if they like you, you'll get things. If they don't,
Yeah.
you'll get nothing. And it seemed as if they choose. And it's not
Yeah.
about being on your own, because sometimes, as in room 6 in the spring, we had a lovely team. 2 lads, two girls came, and they were in room 6 and they saw the door because it was shut and it was the click. They heard the door handle go down and open, and they've caught it live on camera,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
and they
So
checked it as well,
I
because
agree with that. I think you're
it's
absolutely right. I think it's a personality thing, isn't it? I think if they deign to like you, because the same as me, I've gone investigations where, and Viv's probably done the same, where you ask out, you get nothing, but then you bring somebody else in and they'll get spoke to, but then you won't get any connection, but they'll have the whole connection. So yeah, I think it is. I think you're absolutely right. So
the
how many years?
perfect.
Sorry,
Sorry.
sorry.
The perfect scenario was just before COVID. Lisa, the team member, she's fantastic seamstress. So she made from a real pattern a Georgian dress and a Victorian dress. She wore this Georgian dress, and from that time, she has things happen. As if, I mean, we joke and say James, the son of the builder, he fancies her because it's so bizarre. And when she got her cancer diagnosis, it went a lot quieter. So I'm so looking forward for her coming back to see if it ramps up around her again.
Yeah.
That will be interesting.
Mm.
That will be interesting. Does she feel that she's got a special connection with the spirit that's there with James's son?
Yes.
She does.
She's sensitive. I'm as sensitive as a brick.
Totally.
So there could be a ghost sat next to me and I wouldn't know. Sometimes, you get that feeling.
Yeah.
But I would love to have those psychic abilities to
Yeah.
see and experience it.
Yeah, I totally
But I
agree. I'm
did,
exactly like you. No, I've got no psychic ability whatsoever.
yeah. But I saw my first ever ghost was at the Jamaica Inn. And I think that was the day
Oh, was
I
it
fell in love
really?
with the place. Yeah,
How did that manifest in what situation was
it
that? What
was
happened?
a public event. Must have been about 14 years ago. Something I can't remember. It was a few years before we came on there. So it must be 14, 15 years ago. And we were in we were in the museum. There's about 4 of us, just sat on chairs, and I had some bracelets. I put them on the floor, and you expect a certain image. Mine was weird. it was like take an old cine film and cut slithers through it. And every now and again, a slither would come into focus. You could see this girl knelt down. She had a dark dress, a white overcoat. So you knew she was Victorian because of the
Right.
style.
Yeah.
But it was her hair, beautiful, thick, blonde, long, curly hair. And I was just transfixed, just watching this. And if I recall, a couple of people claim to have seen it. What I didn't know, that description has been reported at the Jamaica Inn for years that I know of.
Well, in the same room that you experienced it, or
Same little girl, yeah. But other people have seen her as solid, or there's one lady, Bridie, that works there. She's so used to her, she hears her giggling, hiding behind things.
oh, so she's intelligent then. She's not just a place
Oh,
memory. She's actually
yeah.
interacting.
Yeah,
That's
because
interesting.
we get knocks on doors all the time, and you go to open the bedroom door and there's no one there, and the hallway motion activated light hasn't come on either.
That's
So,
interesting.
yeah.
That's really interesting. So, is there any inclination or idea as to who she might be, or any history that
Well,
mentions?
we know the people that live there, and over the years, the most common name, and we always try to be careful, you know, not to say, oh, it's this. We always is open. And the most common name is Elizabeth, and I know of 3 Elizabeths that were born there that were children. And especially towards the latter part of the Victorian period.
And
If
is there any
that's your
children
name,
passed there
sorry.
at all, or any children passed there at all?
We know that James Brawl, the son of the first one, he had 7 children, and I think half died. But one, his grandson, I've got a photo of him from the 1920s living in Canada, as an old man. So
Oh, wow.
the legacy did go on. But it's like, it just constantly wows me that you
Yeah, I bet.
have this place, you constantly have new things happen, new history. And only recently, Liz, the Cornish bird, found an amazing connection with us in Jamaica, Bodmin Down. And
Really?
it was, this story, I haven't put it up yet, is fantastic. This man escaped from Bodmin. He stole a horse from a nearby stable, rode up what they call the Launceston Road, which is
I know it.
Old Road.
Yeah.
He got to the Jamaica Inn, so it was like 1830, something like that, I think. He went round the back, opened up a sash window, saw a fob watch, stole it. Then he carried on to a farm, and I don't know where he got drunk. So they captured him, and he was taken back to Bodmin, and he was hung.
Oh,
Wow.
It's you know, and you just think, wow, you know. But you find in Cornwall, places are connected all the time. I've got a brilliant letter, newspaper letter from this James Broad, because in Launceston, it used to be the capital of Cornwall.
Yes.
There's a famous chemist called Mr. Ching. The Ching family were one of the bigwigs of there. And in 1798, James Broad signed an affidavit where it was witnessed by 2 other gentlemen of the esteemed town that he suffered greatly with pains in his bowels and stomach. And he took a Mr. Ching's worm lozenge and excised worms from a few inches to up to 7 feet long. And that was all published. It's like, brilliant.
so that's talking about tapeworms, isn't it? Up to 7 feet.
Yeah,
long. Yeah.
There is a lot of history. I mean, the road that, if I remember rightly, isn't the road that's at the, because you've got the A3, what do you call it, run beside it, haven't you?
Yeah.
A30. And there's a road that's just at the back of it, which is like it's a slip road or whatever. It's been a long time since I've been there. But it's the first road ever to be tarmacked.
Exactly, right outside the Jamaica Inn.
And it was a guy called McAdam.
McAdams, yeah.
Naval officer.
Yeah.
I remember that bit. And I also remember that there's also meant to be a spirit that sits outside the pub, isn't there, on the wall?
Yes, first reported in 1911 in the newspapers and Country Life of a man dressed in strange clothing. So obviously before that time period. And when the locals went up to chat to him, he ignored him and disappeared. Now, I thought we've had nothing since. To just before COVID again, I was contacted by a lady, and she said as a child in 1977, she sat in the car on the road outside the inn. She's about 7 or 8, and she says to her mum, "Who's that weird man dressed sat on the wall? Why aren't people talking to him?" So I wonder if there's any more that we don't know about, and he's still there. Who knows?
Because that courtyard, people were in the early hours of the morning have heard horses and carts coming, haven't they? And people speaking, like smuggling and unloading stuff.
Yes, on gravel, because obviously the the cobbles you see now came from Plymouth and around about 1950, 1952. But weirdly, we had a lady from the Coaching Inn stay this year in room 34, and that's the new block. So that would have been probably a cow shed, because people forget it was a working farm from the beginning right up into the 1900s. And she could hear someone pushing a barrel.
Oh, wow.
And when she looked out, there was no one there. And it was so bad, the noise, she put earplugs in.
Wow, that's interesting. So we got a question for you. William wants to know, when was the inn built?
We all thought it was 1750, but I can say now it was actually 1776, and it was built by a Captain John Broad, who was a mariner. He signed a tenancy agreement with a James Scarwin, who was part of a merchant family. And we think that may be where he got the name Jamaica Inn, not the Trelawney family. Or as he was sailing around West Indies, he might have decided it, because a lot of ex-mariners became licensees of pubs. And then they named the pub usually after something like the Scarab and, or the Saccharin's head or something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, hello, Alison. Hope you're doing well.
All the way from, what's that? Ansonia?
Ansonia, is that Connecticut? Is it? CT, Connecticut, USA. There you go. Wow. Welcome, Alison. Welcome. So that's amazing. So what other interactions have you had in there? Have you had any kind of physical interactions with any of these spirits in there?
So the first time I stayed in room 5 with my friend Tracy. Now, I didn't know, but Richard Felix stayed in room 5 during the filming of the 2004 Most Haunted. And there used to be, on the bathroom door, used to be an old-fashioned catch. And he recalled to me years later that he was in bed and he's scared of the dark. And this catch kept going, even though there were no windows open. Well, I'm in bed with my friend, and we heard the catch of the door, and it was winter, so all the windows were shut. There were no drafts. And we thought it was weird. Then we heard footsteps walk around from my side of the bed to hers, then back again. And it was, I wouldn't say it was manly. I would say it's more ladylike. It was soft.
Right, okay.
Wasn't a child. But I was so tired. Normally, you're like, yes. And I remember my friend nudging me. She said, "Don't you go to sleep." She said, "It's my night out." But I've also had that in the manager's flat as well. And that was one time I was in that one room on my own. Colin was in the other room. And we couldn't lock the manager's door. And I heard boots come up the steps, even though there's a thick carpet. This was 3:30 a.m. And I'm on the phone to one of the ladies who was helping us, and she was driving home, so I was keeping her awake. And I said, "There's someone stood out the room. You could hear the pacing." Next minute, I could hear it walking around the bed, again, as if on floorboards. This is a modern bit of extension. It's not old. So, as any good investigator, I said, "I'm going to bed," and I put the quilt over my head, which saves you from everything.
Yeah, it does.
Make sure you keep your feet tucked in as well. They can't get you with your feet tucked in.
That's the best protection of all. That is. Karin, I'm going to ask you a question. So, Bodmin Jail. You've been there a few times, haven't you? What can you tell us about what you know about the jail?
Right. So Bob in jail, obviously, before the hotel and everything, absolutely loved it. Really haunted, and I mean haunted, especially down in the cellar, steps. Once Rob, was it Mark Rabin, who used to look after it, we brought a police dress uniform down. So he had that
Wow.
on. He's walking down the corridor and he's jiggling keys. Oh my God. We could hear footsteps above us, but it was a flat roof. It was superb. And then now they've got a new event manager called Joe. He is amazing. He's going to bring back the heritage, pardon me,
Good.
the history.
Yeah.
And we went down to see them recently and to see the hotel. I mean, my God, I was thinking, oh God, is it going to be the same? But I'm hoping to go and investigate soon. Because with me, if you've got the heritage and you're protecting it, it's not demons or things like that.
No.
That is what I love. No disrespect against those that do. It's not me. I don't believe it in a second. I want the history. I want to know the stories of the individuals
Exactly
who were there.
Exactly that. I agree
Not the
completely.
Lightfoot brothers. I want the little stories of a woman who, drowned her baby because she couldn't afford to keep the baby. All those tragic things.
Yeah.
Do you know, I had the best experience there of a disembodied voice I've ever had, ever.
Really?
And I've been doing it for a long time now. And it was down in the cellar. And there was, I remember we were down there. We were just about to start investigate. Well, we were there early, so we were just doing a bit of a recce. It was only us in there. And there were 4 of us down in the cellar. And I walked off, just went off wandering. And I stuck my head in the cell, but it was cordoned off. They had something across the cell door, so you couldn't get all the gap. So I stuck my head, and it was pitch black. I had a look round, and as I turned around and walked out, there was a woman's voice with a Cornish accent that said, "What do you want?"
That's brilliant.
It was that, and I thought. But the weirdest thing was, this voice came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Yeah.
And I thought,
Hi,
what?
Jane.
And the guy who was with me turned around and looked at me and went, "Did you just hear that?" I went, "Yeah, I think that might have been aimed at me." And then the other 2 investigators came around and went, "We heard that as well." Yeah. And it was chilling, but so interesting because you're dealing with a little bit of the social history. Forget your kings and queens. You're dealing with the ordinary man and woman in the street, aren't you? And that's what makes it interesting.
That's why I'm obsessed with language and clothing and stuff like that. So I am terrible. I should speak fluent German, much to disgust of my 95-year-old German mother. I speak a little bit. So she does say, "You bloody English." I speak 3 languages. And I said, well, I speak Bristolian. You can understand it when you came over in the 50s. So there. Every time her brother-in-law spoke, it was like a scene out of the Hot Fuzz with the farmer. My dad had to translate. So I'm fluent in one language. But a little bit of Cornish. Cornish is like Welsh, is that Celtic thing. And, I want to do more with it. My pronunciation's terrible, but I love this. Dith da fat Guinness. Hello, how are you? Fat Guinness. Do you want a Guinness? And, the number 10, Deg. It's do you want a Deg? But language, and I think if you're talking to someone supposedly from a certain time period, how we greeted each other in those olden days, it's all about our class system. Calling people sir, madam, a good morrow to you, all things like that. So that's the avenue I'm going down. And dressing up. We're going back to Woodchester again, all dressed up, but this time, Second World War. We did it last May, and Kev had a real World War II Army uniform. It was donated to my friend Russet. She owns Bath Theatrical Costume Hire. 30,000 costumes and donated dresses, military uniforms. Wow. And Kev, who had investigated Woodchester as part of the resident team, very skeptical. He saw a golem-type creature trying to crawl up his leg. And that is the only time I ever heard him say he freaked a little bit. And I think it's because he was dressed up. So if we go back again, we'll try to recreate it and see what happens. Unfortunately, that night I was dressed as the fat the fat Georgian cook. So unfortunately, it did look good because I was walking around saying, "We burnt the guinea fowl, me lord."
Brilliant. Oh, brilliant. Oh, do you know, I'd like to see this as a stage play, because I think it'd be fantastic to see, just like a little bit of a comedy thing.
Do you ever investigate a court or anything like that?
We have done, haven't we?
We have, yeah, but not for a long while, have we, really?
Yeah.
Right. I have a play I wrote for 15 minutes for about 9 people. And the tone is the Georgian period, so 1820s, because when people were tried in those days, the courts were loud, people went there for entertainment, they threw things. And I did one where myself and Lisa I was the brothel madam. She was one of my girls, and she was accused of killing one of her clients. Well, he just fell down dead. So David Golden is the judge. And he's saying, quiet, and I'm saying, "Oh, me lord, you didn't mind when your bridge was around your ankles last night, did you?" Because sex, there was no, like the Victorians made it prudish. Everyone, brothels, selling your daughters for their virginity, it was all part and parcel of life.
It was. People forget that, though, I think, don't they?
And the venereal diseases that went with it as well.
Yeah,
like that was part of everyday life, and now it's like, ooh, taboo, you can't talk about that.
They used to wish pox upon each other, didn't they, all the time?
Exactly. And the old swear words and the old swear words as well. I love my husband, I call him McQuente. He thinks it's endearing. It's the see you next Tuesday. So it's that fun.
What's the one I like? I think it's the Georgian saying. It was the devil take your eyes, sir. I've always loved that one. The devil take your eyes, sir.
It's brilliant. I've got to use that.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love that one.
You've got to put the sir on the end to have the real effect, though, haven't you?
Yeah.
I was going to say, on your mother. I love that. Pox on your mother.
I had a shock when my son, because we've been to Wales and back quite a lot over our lifetime, and he said to me, "Mum," he said, "when you get in, ask Alexa to say 100, 100, 100, 100 in Welsh." And so me asking, she says it back to you, but it sounds like, "See you next Tuesday, see you next Tuesday, see you next Tuesday." Oh, that's swearing.
Trust boys to find out.
And that was like, how did you find out?
See, my mother doesn't swear, but some where memory's going now, so I get her to say the pheasant plucker rhyme.
Yes.
And she never say it, so she ends up swearing without realising it. And it's brilliant.
That goes back in history, though, doesn't it? That rhyme. That's not a new rhyme.
My great auntie, she was 99 when she died. She used to ride a motorbike in the 1920s because our family are a bit sort of cuckoo. And she taught me all the rude rhymes of that generation. So the early 20th century. And I've remembered 3 of them. And I love them. And sometimes if I'm somewhere, I'll say them because it's what working class people said.
Yes.
In the pub and things like that.
Yes. And that's when it's going to be mostly recognised, isn't it? If you're talking in a pub and you come out with stuff like that, that's where it's going to be appreciated, I think.
Yeah.
Scott, you can talk. He's funny, Scott is. Oh, we do love Scott.
I'm interested in the creature that crawled up his leg, though. Could he feel it as well? Could he, or?
I'm not 100% sure because there's always been this tradition of a half humanoid, body, but not much legs or anything. There's always been that in the cellar. And some people claim to have seen. I've seen like a shape, but I couldn't be honest and say it was anything over the years. But again, you know, Woodchester, if it's just 7 or 8 of you, it loves it when it's less.
Yeah.
And if you're on their own, I mean, we did an experiment, me and Rachel, the last time we went just a few months ago. We sat back to back in the cellar, blindfolded, and we just sat there. Now, felt perfectly calm, and then after about 10 minutes, this wave of fear came in, and you could feel it. And I love this instinct that we all have, this animalistic instinct. And I said to her, I said, the hairs have gone up in the back of my neck. We're not alone. She said, I feel the same. Then it went. So then we put the chairs side by side with our backs against the wall, blindfolds off. And interesting, I saw a shadow, not human, but a shadow go from right to left. She saw the same go left to right. So whose perception was right? Or did we imagine it?
That's a weird
That's
place.
what you had a thing in that cellar, didn't you?
Well, Jay had the growl. He heard a growl in that cellar, and it didn't happen once or twice. It happened a few times throughout the course of the evening, and it scared him to the point where he just ran. His instinct was to get out of there. Of course, he puts panic amongst everybody else, doesn't he? You know, so you follow him.
He does.
I did one time because we do prank a lot there. One prank a night, and I dressed up in the full Scream outfit in the cellar, and we lured Chris slowly down, and he knew something was up because he only came to the bottom of the steps, and I just stood there, and I must admit that he did let out a little yelp.
Hey, David's on. He says he loves
Woodchester Mansion is good. It is good,
yeah,
David.
he's coming back with us next spring because, like I say, we do it usually about 3 times a year because it's another ongoing experiment. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's an interesting place, isn't it?
Oh,
it is.
It's an interesting place. It's almost like it's almost like it's got not like something it doesn't want to be built on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me as well, Scott. I'm the same.
Scott says, I'd love the hairs to stand on my neck. Heads to stand up, but I'm bald.
Well, he should look at that thing because women get their 50s. Why do chin hairs appear? And
yes,
what I love are the white ones. You can't see them. It's like playing Battleship. You're there with the mirror and tweezers trying to feel where they are. Why? But what do men get? Hair in their ears.
That is true. That is true.
Do you know, I'd be scared to be sitting there with my mirror and my tweezers just trying to get these hairs one in a location knowing that it's haunted because you never know what you're going to see over your shoulder. So just stick with the hairs.
I love psychology. I wish I was intelligent enough to study it professionally. But I love how you can influence people. So Rachel from the Jamaica Inn team, she lives in Launceston. And when she started, I innocently said one day when she was going home on her own, I said, don't look in your rearview mirror. You might find Jack sat behind the seat. She can't look in a mirror. She's so traumatized now. She only looks in the side mirror. She will not look in the rearview mirror all the way home. Then one night
what you're going to see.
I know one night, though, we did a Halloween one. She brought her skeleton. So we had it in the front seat and had the arm taped up and it was doing that as she drove off.
What was he put? Scott says...
I've got loads of hair in me. Here. We grow hair in the ears to filter out the bullshit.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
I've got loads of hair in my ears. No doubt my body knows what I need because I fucking don't. I just looked up the phrase, seems to be a modern but has a punch. I don't know what that... I don't know which one. No. What's it Edinburgh Fringe today? You're not getting it, Enrique. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be.
You need to come down to Cornwall. That's what you need to do.
I've done Mary King's. It's interesting, but historically it's interesting, but I didn't experience anything there.
I've done all of them privately and a private hire. Dr. Boots, I stood in his, in his little part, asking for him to come in, talk to me. But interestingly, there I was sat on a rock, and it's the only time I've had experience. I can't explain. I'm just sat there. And when people say about someone walking through you, this was like an ice cube walking right through my body. It even took my breath away. I was like, and then I just, oh, yes, do it again. It wasn't low blood pressure, because I get that sometimes, but it was literally a giant ice cube being pushed through your body. I don't know. There might be a medical answer for it, but it was fascinating.
I've had it.
That's the only time.
I think you've had it, Viv, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's like an ice cube going through you, and it's like a big block of ice going.
And it catches you. It sort of catches you. You can't breathe. And,
so I'm not mad then.
No. That's quite a common occurrence. Well, I say common. It's happened quite a lot to people. So for me, Woodchester is interesting because of Chris Howley's experiences. Someone who knows location, lived and breathed it. Yeah, I agree with that. Which I've been there for the sort of period of time that I think you need a location to really get. I agree. Trusted witness makes it. Yeah, I totally agree with everything there, David. And you're right. The longer you're there, the more they get to know you, don't they? You become part of the
Exactly. I saw a soldier on the top floor once on my own, and I was getting up off the floor. And of course, being of sprightly roundness, it took me a little while to get up like a baby, backside first on the knees. And as my torch turned, from the neck down was a solid figure of a man in uniform.
Wow.
So, of course, literally 2 seconds later, the torch goes back, it's gone. So I slightly quickly walked down the stairs, or waddled down, went to Chris. I said, it wasn't American, it wasn't an English uniform. He said, we had Canadians. I went,
Oh, did they? That's interesting.
And
Bronze Age. Yeah, that's beautiful, Cornwall.
He loves Cornwall, some fantastic Neolithic and Bronze Age archaeology. Do you get involved in any of that at all, Karen? Do you see much of it?
What, down there or elsewhere?
Where you are?
Well, I have a friend who owns a church. It was a disused church, famous one on the bottom hill of St. Michael's. It had no roof, been caught in a fire, and he converted it to an event centre. And the crypt had to be lowered. And he said to me, I've got an archaeologist coming in. And I'm, no, you're not missing this. So myself and Sarah had 2 days with the archaeologist as they opened up each crypt, having to remove the coffins, the bodies.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
All to be, had to be photographed. But what interested me was, if a crypt was damp, not only the coffin fell apart, the bones went to mush. If the crypt was dry, I remember there was one head as a gentleman, it still had the shroud pinned to his head and his white hair on the side.
Oh, wow.
And there was another that was in situ. It didn't have to be moved. And it was around about 1800s, because a lot of the churches the naves were rebuilt round about then. But the tower is medieval. And the brass plate, everything looked as if it had been down there just like a few years.
Wow.
But there's one tombstone, because they got all the tombstones on the floor, and one says Horatio Nelson. Obviously not the real one, but someone was named Horatio Nelson. And
That's
it was also a air raid shelter in the Second World War, and it had a direct hit. But no one was injured, just had a bit of a hole in the roof. They built those to last, didn't they, in those days?
Unreal, wasn't it? Unreal. Do you know what? If you look out of, is it Bolventa, isn't it?
Yes.
Where, if you look out, come out, I don't know, towards the A30, and you look more or less directly across, there's a church over there.
Bolventa Church, yes, 1857.
I nearly bought that.
There's 2 bodies still buried in the kitchen. They didn't remove those bodies.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It was looking derelict in that a few years ago. Quite a few years ago.
It's been bought. Yeah, and it's all been done up.
Has it been changed into a house or?
Yeah, it's a house, private dwelling. And the lady who lives there, she works in the gift shop.
Oh, does she really?
It's brilliant.
Oh, do you know, we went around it when it was a wreck, and we could have bought it at the time for 85,000, I think it was.
Wow.
But it was just like, this is just stunning. This is beautiful. And
But
we would
do
have
you
bought
know?
it, but then we looked somewhere else, and things just know what happens with life.
Yeah. Do you know how Boulventa got its name?
No.
I love it. I love it. So Captain Broad, this was open moorland, you see, and he was allowed to hedge in 20 acres of land and build a dwelling house at his own expense and turn the moorland into pasture. And he called this Bold Venture, and that's why it became Boulventa. Yeah,
That's interesting.
it's brilliant.
I love these kind of stories. They're
Oh, I love it.
amazing,
I love
aren't
it.
they?
See, my family heritage comes from the West Country,
Yeah.
going back centuries. They, still family in the West Country. But yeah, I've sort of aimed to get back there for all the years, but never did.
So
But yeah,
for me, it's the stories of individuals. There's one in the census of 1861. There's a lodger there called Francis Braddon, 42, and it says retired assistant paymaster, Her Majesty's Royal Navy.
wow.
And I thought, oh, I'll have a look. What I didn't realise, every time an appointment was made in the Navy, they announced it in the newspapers. So I found this amazing history of this unknown name. He joined the Navy at 21. He must have had an education. He was from Launceston. He never married. He sailed the seven seas. And there's a stamp that was done of HMS Amethyst showing the frigate that he sailed on. He then retired to Launceston, and in 1904 walked out of his lodging house, tripped and nipped a bone in his hip, and he died in 1905.
Oh,
So one little name on a census, and you can put flesh to the bones.
You're
That, to
rebuilding the
me,
character again, aren't you? That's the thing, isn't it?
yeah,
And
you're
that's the thing.
bringing
And
these stories to life.
do you know what? And I'm like you in the sense that's why I like graveyards and cemeteries, because you're walking through a library of souls, aren't you? Each one had its own life. Each one experienced things, loved ones, and everything else. What we're living today, they've had.
Yeah.
And it's just you're putting yourself in their place and trying to, remember them, and that's what makes it so exciting, isn't it? And the fact that you can then hope to communicate with them, even it's the icing on the cake.
We had Julie from WAS come down. She comes down every 2 or 3 years, and she was there in January. And we didn't know this new history, so there's no way that she would have known. Mm-hmm. And it was a private hire, and she kindly invited myself and Rachel to come and sit at the bar of the last bit. So we sat there, and she said, "Oh, I've got a gentleman here." She said, "This is his," and I thought, "Oh, we've never had a." Well, I didn't know it was a captain. We thought it might be John Broad. And I thought, right, let's do a trick question. I said, did he name this after the Trelawney family? She went, oh, he didn't like that. Of course, we found out it wasn't. She said, and he's pointing his finger at you and going, I know you. I know of you. It's like,
well, that's the advantage, isn't it? The advantage is they do. They get to know you. You don't know them, but they do get to know you.
Dan, we need to give Karin a new nickname. It should be Karin, the forensic paranormal. What would you call her? She's like a forensic
parapsychologist.
She's going into the paranormal history. I love it. I love these
I'm
stories.
A professional idiot. I've had years of practice.
I've got more degrees than you in it, though.
Karin, you also look after is it the Warmley Clock Tower?
So what I do with the Warmley, I came across it by accident about 9 years ago, and we were allowed to investigate it privately for about a couple of years. And again, always give money to charity. Very, very funny about that. And then they want to open it to the public because as a charity that's open for community use, they didn't have a lot of money. So I said, yeah, brilliant, but I'll advise. So Chris, the trustee, deals with it. So I'm there on an advisor capacity. My details are on the website and I promote it. But what I love is the history of the Quakers in Bristol. So you've got the
Yeah.
Bournevilles, you know, all these people were Quakers. And this man, William Champion, he devised a way to smelt copper that was, or zinc, that was unique. And he built this massive estate. Waterfalls, a big lake. There's still a statue of Neptune that is the biggest garden statue in England.
Wow.
And when they filled the lake in, it was filled with the rubble of the Bristol Blitz.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they've got a grotto, and they've got ice house, and there's a museum, but still with the big tunnel or the big tower that they would do the smelting process. So it's all this hidden history that you have.
Yeah.
And it's only a small building, but this is what I love. The paranormal has done that place proud. You're given the keys. There's a great deal of trust there. So we've only had to ban 1 or 2 people, you know, which is amazing, where you think all the people come in. Now they have a really healthy bank balance. They've done all necessary repairs, and they carry on doing as their charity purpose. And to me, that is when the paranormal works. And I'm just so proud of the teams and event companies that go in there. Really am.
Yeah, that's,
you know, Karen,
good though.
I want to say we have to thank you as well, because you do a lot for the because you do a lot for the I've known of you for a long time, and you do a lot for the paranormal community, even though you don't realise you're doing it. And you know, people have got to realise the hard work and effort that you put in behind the scenes. So I, for one, want to say thank you to you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Before we give her any more titles, though, David wants to say something.
Don't give her your telephone number, it's the usual one.
Hey, you just call her my lady when you next see her.
My lady.
But you see, you know, there are this hidden group of people, you know, that we all interact, and we're in it just to leave a tiny little bit of legacy for the good, as we all say, the greater good. So I'm also a paranormal consultant for Visit Somerset. So I absolutely adore that. So I'm friends with Chris, the manager from Wookey Hall. So I'm hoping eventually that Sunday nights will be open up for teams only to go in higher Wookey Hall. So they have, not Wookey Hall, the mill at Wookey Hall. So then they can give Chris data, what they get, build up a picture.
Yeah.
You know, I'm also with myself, Lisa and Laurie and Jones. We are advising the coaching group. We've just launched the Talbot in Undle, this famous place for teams and event companies. But we do it because as an investigator, I know what I want from a venue. I don't want a wedding going on while I'm sat there trying to do EVPs. I want it clear, concise instructions. But as a venue, I want to make sure that they don't get taken advantage of, and also protect the history. That is my biggest gripe, is people rewriting history to suit their paranormal narrative.
Yes.
You know, the demon house. I'm sorry. I know it's not nice, but, you know, that's your perception. Please don't give a heritage location a title like that. Or title, you know?
Exactly.
I think when they call it the demon house, you know exactly what you're going to get, don't you? So you just don't bother going there.
Yeah.
Caroline.
Oh, that's sweet. That's nice.
Caroline says she calls you Auntie Maud.
Yeah, I'm great.
For all the help.
So, I was at a secret location advising with a Kev Kerr, and there was this amazing man there, this former history teacher. And I just thought I could just sit and listen to his stories. Expert on World War II, he's written a book. I'm straight on the phone to Misha from Haunted History Chronicles going, you've got to interview this man. He's amazing. You know, so I'm like her pimp. You know, I'm saying,
you can throw a few our way if you want.
But it to me, and it's like, you know, down at Bodmin, you know, we were saying to them, have you thought of this person? Have you thought of this person? Because if we can't help each other, we've remained stagnant. And you know, there's some amazing pimp, yeah. Same as with David, yeah.
Is
But
it?
we also,
Exactly, Scott. I agree.
but history as well. It's not all about kings and queens. And as
No.
my mum being a German refugee, I've got this fantastic story. She was in what they called Sudetenland. So she was in 5 years in a forced labor camp,
Yeah.
hid from the Russians that were raping all the women.
Yeah.
Traumatic, you know. And I think my brother was about 11 being taught history, and he must have come home and said something. She's only 5'2". So she went marching down to the school the next day, went into the history teacher. I mean, that was what, early 60s. So they wore the, you know, the cap and the cloak.
Yeah.
And she said, "You, sir, don't know nothing. I was there. You are wrong." I walked out.
Oh, love her.
She's so tenacious.
Trouble is, you can't argue with that. If somebody was there, you can't argue with it, can you?
Yeah. The one thing I'm proud of, my English grandfather, who was at Yeats and at Passchendaele, saw horrors, used to pick up the body parts, welcomed a German-speaking daughter-in-law into his life. She lived in their pub for a while. And on a Sunday, she would bake all these weird foreign cakes. And he would walk around his pub with a trace, really proud, and said, "Look what my beautiful daughter-in-law has baked." To me, that is a hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no need for it to be any other way, is there, really?
Yeah.
Caroline says, "Thank goodness I never give the name pimp. Supplier, maybe. I put supplier of ghosty stuff because we don't want them to think it's drugs or anything.
Ghosty stuff.
The ghost supplier history. No, the history ghost supplier.
It's like Shepton Mallet. You know, everyone knows Shepton Mallet prison, but Jenny, who works there, she's only about 5 foot. You listen to her interview on the Haunted History Chronicles. That woman is like a sponge with history you didn't know.
Is Jenny
those are the stars. Yeah.
Is she the young lady that was she a prison officer there at one point?
She's there. She does the paranormal night, so she's the one that looks after you.
That's
I
got
don't
her,
know
isn't
if
it?
she was a prison officer.
But lovely girl, lovely girl.
Yeah.
Red hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. She got us information that night, which we wouldn't have been able to get without her.
So to me, these are the stars. Same as Chris from Wookey Hall. He's been the manager for 20 odd years. I had him interviewed because he knows some amazing history. And I got to tell you something that no one knows. There's a beautiful wooden horse, carved horse from the fairgrounds there. What people don't know, my friend's father carved all these horses. And his friend was having a love affair. And they broke up and he had all these love letters. And he said to him, "What shall I do?" He went, "I'll do it." So he put them in all these horses. So if ever a day happens and they break them over, they will see love letters between a man and a woman.
How amazing is that?
That's beautiful.
It's in history. Yeah.
That is beautiful.
To me, those little gems of a venue that's what I strive for.
Plus, you can get cave matured cheese.
Yeah.
Wookey Hole. I've had a bit of that. It's nice.
Can you?
I do recommend it.
I'll be down there buying some.
Yeah. But people don't realise there's been a mill on the site since I think the 1600s. Because I've been down in the cellar and the river runs. It's quite a torrent. It runs rushing right underneath the building. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Isn't Wookey Hole where they didn't? Don't they employ a resident witch there?
Yes.
They do that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Some people say I should do it because of my cackle. I don't know what they mean. Only thing I like scaring kids.
There's nothing wrong with that. I've got it in the introduction documents to hard locations I manage that there's always fair and accurate representation and that appropriate terminology is used when promoting the venue. Perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly. David has been doing this for donkey's years behind the
Good.
scenes.
Good.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, another hidden gem.
Yeah.
And, you know, his passion for preserving history and protecting it. I take my hat off to him. He's a fantastic man. And he talks more than me.
Does he? Yeah. Maybe we should get him on a show and we can have a bit of a
He
break.
would be brilliant. He would be brilliant.
David, you're coming on.
Touch.
We're coming on, David.
Yeah.
Bless him.
I didn't realise that. Oh, sorry. Where are we?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
Because it was
interesting.
owned by Jerry Cottle Circus. Of course, the main man died, didn't he, a few months ago?
Yeah.
So it's all connected.
That makes sense then. I didn't know that, Robert. Thank you for that.
There? Is he still in there, Cheddar Man, the bones?
No,
It used
no,
to be, is it
he's
in Cheddar Gorge.
Cheddar Gorge in that little museum, isn't he?
Ah, right.
My mother used to date him.
Alison says, I don't believe that someone talks more than Karen.
They do me well. Oh, dear.
Well, we're coming up to the top of the hour.
We are.
It's been fantastic, Karen. Can we get you on again? Will you come on again and talk to us?
I'd love to. I'm so
Oh, we'd love to have you on again. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
We've loved every minute of this. It's been brilliant.
He's made a professional living out of his goal. Hey, if you got it, use it. There's nothing wrong with that, David.
I'm going to send you over some dates, David. You're not getting away.
No, he's got you now.
He is absolutely fantastic. And again, you know, we're so lucky because we're all in these little bubbles where we have vastly different beliefs, but we'll debate, we'll talk, we don't fall out. And that's how it should be.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because someone's got a different opinion than you. If I said to people, you know, I've got opinions, they're not right. They might not be right. They might be totally wrong. You know, but you've got to be malleable, haven't you? You've got to move. Your ideas have to shift.
And you know? There's friends of ours. I mean, you have to get Rachel Hayward on to talk about her book and the Zena card experiment, because though I'm not a believer in the Ouija board, I've seen this experiment and it's so controlled. It's not ESP. I don't think it's a ghost. I cannot explain how this experiment worked. I've only seen it work 3 times in 7 or 8 years. But when it does, you're literally sat there with your mouth on the floor.
Wow.
And again, it's using something that perhaps you don't believe, but it's for a different reason.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, learning from each other. He's thinking, well, they do that. I don't believe in that. So I'll change it to suit what I believe in. It's brilliant. Exactly, David. Yeah.
Yeah, agree with that completely. Be careful out there, though.
Oh, bless you. Oh, bless you. Thank you. I've got to cook the husband's omelette now.
When you stop there, I've got to cook the husband.
She's going to eat him.
Yeah. He'll go mad because he hates all this. He doesn't do social media or anything. And he's 6'5" and he's a scaffolder. And I call him Neanderthal man because my dad used to
won't upset him.
Oh, yeah, he's huge. No, I've given him a black eye in the old days. He doesn't do what he's told. I've trained him after 28 years. But, you know, he works so hard. He travels from Bristol to near Oxford. He works on the big MOD site, Aldermaston. And, you know, it's long hours and I control the money. I give him a bit of pocket money, bless him. He doesn't So that's why I'll, you know, cook his dinner and make a fuss of him and, you know, sometimes make a fuss of him in other ways.
I was going to say that scaffolding's a bloody hard job.
Oh, but
really tough.
Because they're registered, you know, this big MOD, when he got the job, it was hilarious because they bugged the house phone. They went through the bank account, they interviewed, they checked the family. So when you used to pick the house phone up, you could hear the click. So me and a friend, we would say, "Oh, that was a bomb of a night last night, wasn't it? We had it going for months."
Well, good evening, comrade.
You can't do that.
The best one ever, because I've always got stuff in my car, and he had to take my car to work. He said, "Don't leave anything in there," and I ignored him. He came home that night. He was seething. He said, "I've nearly disappeared because of you." And I said, "Oh, why?" He said they open up the boot because they check everything when you leave. He said they saw a giant Ouija board, a hangman's noose, duct tape, and tripod.
That's brilliant.
He said, "I just said to him, look her name up. She's weird." So he still takes a car. So I've hidden the hangman's noose under the passenger seat.
I don't see how that makes it any better, because if he gets searched.
Oh dear.
Oh, dear. I love it. Poor chap.
Right, guys, we will be back next Tuesday on the Things Network, where I believe we are talking about egos in the paranormal. So that will be a very explosive discussion that we might have to do in 2 parts, and I will be keeping an eye on people to keep it nice. And next Wednesday, me and Dan will be back on this network with another guest. You never know, we might have David Gordon himself if he's not busy. You never know.
I'm sorry, not Mike. David, you're on next Wednesday. He's on next Wednesday.
I will send you that script for the court. Even if you do it elsewhere, it's so funny when you read it out. You'd love it.
Oh, well, definitely.
We'll do that anyway, won't we, Dan? We'll just go and might even go live with it. Can we go live with it? We'll give you the credits, obviously.
Doesn't matter. Honest to God, I think if you do it somewhere, you will have things happen.
To be honest, when me and Viv turn up, then the ghost must think it's Lauren Hardy's.
Very quickly, the weirdest things ever happened. You ever done Tetna Hall Towers?
No.
Well, that place is weird. They've enlarged the inside, which unfortunately gives it weird acoustics. But before, very, very strange. So I'm walking out 3:30 in the morning. There's no one around my cases. And in my right ear, and I swear on my son's life this is true, I could feel the breath. This man's voice. It wasn't what he said. It was the way he said it. He called me the W word, and he said it. Really was making fun of me. And I stopped dead, and I look around. I put the cases. There's no one there. And I remember I said, well, that's bloody charming, isn't it? And I just laughed and laughed. And I thought, if that is real, if that's a ghost, I'm going to be that ghost when I come back. I'm going to haunt so many people. It's going to be such fun, whether sat on the toilet and I can whisper in their ear and say rude things to them.
Brilliant. I'll tell you what, how must he have felt when he's come from the spirit realm trying to frighten you, and all you've got is, well, that's nice, isn't it? They must have been deflated.
It was the way he said it. It was, I've never experienced anything like it, but it made me laugh. And I thought, there's no one about. I thought someone's thrown their voice, but you could feel the breath. And I've had before. You don't get it now. Years ago, you used to get in your ear the.
Yeah.
Thought, if you can do that, why can't you say hi, John? Dead 200 years.
Yeah, it's true. There's a few things that seem to have stopped happening over the years. Bits and bobs that you used to get that don't no longer. But I suppose things change, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you used to get pokes or your hair pulled. That doesn't seem to happen now. Or whether I'm too old and unattractive for them to want to do it, I don't know.
I think. Do you know what I think it is? I think it's the fact that there isn't an inch of this country now that hasn't got some sort of telephone mast on it, or some sort of electrical. And I think what it's doing with G5 and all that, I think it's genuinely interfering with those currents. And so what it's doing is too much. I remember watching a program or a program once about a guy in Ireland, and he was an authority on the Fae, on fairies. And they said, well, where will you find spirits? Because you no longer find them in towns. He said, no. He said, if you want to find nature spirits now, if you want to find Fae now,
Yeah.
you've got to get out the towns into the middle of the countryside where nobody lives hardly, because there's no electricity there. And that's what they want. They want places where that, because it interferes with whatever, you know, with the wavelength or whatever. And I think that's probably got some relevance to truth in it.
It's like someone, there was that Scottish man that was on your show who said about going onto a lake or onto the sea and investigating on water. And I think has so many fantastic possibilities.
Yeah, it does.
And, you know, nothing to do with the vessel you're on, but, you know, water supposedly a conductor. Does that mean you can go anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
exactly.
You know, that was really interesting what he said. I was fascinated by it.
Yeah, there's so many people out there with so many great ideas, you know, and it's just sort of gripping onto them and seeing what they do with them.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing. That's the good thing.
Yeah.
But thank you, Karen. It was great of you to come on.
Karen,
Really appreciate it. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to people in the chat as well for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
To Karen. We'll let her go now to cook her husband's omelette. So I don't want him on my back giving me what.
No, not a 6x5 scaffolder. No thanks.
I was scared as it is.
Him and my son, they walk as if they're naturally, because natural, because Alex did scaffolding for a while. They walk as if they're carrying 2 carpets, and when you call them, it's not the head, the body turns. It's hilarious.
But yeah, solid, aren't they? That's why. Don't give her your phone number. It's
always Messenger.
That's true. That's true.
Right, guys, we will speak to you next week. Whatever you're doing, be safe. If you're investigating, don't forget to take your torch. And whatever you do, have fun.
Yeah, take it easy, guys. Have a nice, safe week. See you next week, hopefully. Thanks very much.